Welcome to Lighthouse KinShip's devotional video, Different Altitude, Different Attitude. Acts chapter 7, verses 17 to 23, TPT. The time drew near for God to fulfill the prophetic promise he had made to Abraham. Our Jewish people had increased greatly in number, multiplying many times over while in Egypt. Another king who had forgotten how Joseph had made their nation great arose to rule over Egypt. He was an abusive king who exploited our people with his smooth talk. With cruelty, he forced our ancestors to give up their little boys as he committed infanticides. Then Moses came on the scene, a child of divine beauty. His parents hid him from Pharaoh as long as they could to spare his life. After 3 months, they could conceal him no longer.
So they had to abandon him to his fate. But God arranged that Pharaoh's daughter would find him, take him home, and raise him as her own son. So Moses was fully trained in the royal court and educated in the highest wisdom Egypt had to offer until he arose as a powerful prince and an eloquent orator. When Moses turned 40, his heart was stirred for his people, the Israelites. Wednesday, May 3rd, 2023, Monica and I were at Wilson Creek, Grayson Highlands State Park, mouth of Wilson, Virginia.
The first 40 years of Moses' life was the beginning of his journey. He was standing at the trailhead of climbing higher with God, or never experiencing the excitement of a breathtaking adventure. Moses' life in Egypt gave him knowledge of Pharaoh and understanding of Egypt. God used all of this knowledge and understanding from Moses' calling to a higher altitude. For Moses to transition from his secular attitude to God's attitude, God needed to change Moses' altitude.
Acts 7, verse 24 to 29 TPT. One day he saw one of our people being violently mistreated, so he came to his rescue, and with his own hands Moses murdered the abusive Egyptian. Moses hoped that when the people realized how he had rescued one of their own, they would recognize him as their deliverer. How wrong he was. The next day he came upon 2 of our own people engaged in a fist fight, and he tried to break it up by saying, "Men, you are brothers. Why would you want to hurt each other?" But the perpetrator pushed Moses aside and said, "Who do you think you are? Who appointed you to be our ruler and judge? Are you going to kill me like you did that Egyptian yesterday?" Shaken by this, Moses fled Egypt and lived as an exile in the land of Midian, where he became the father of 2 sons.
Moses' next 40 years was not the extravagant life he was living in Egypt. He was no longer living in the royalty of Egypt, but he was now a shepherd, which was despised by the Egyptians. However, God had a different altitude for Moses than Egypt, with all its education, power, or luxuries, as well as being an exile in the land of Midian.
Exodus 3, verses 1 to 5 and 7 NLT. One day Moses was tending the flock of his father-in-law Jethro, the priest of Midian. He led the flock far into the wilderness and came to Sinai, the mountain of God. There the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a blazing fire from the middle of a bush. Moses stared in amazement. Though the bush was engulfed in flames, it didn't burn up. "This is amazing," Moses said to himself. "Why isn't that bush burning up? I must go see it." When the Lord saw Moses coming to take a closer look, God called to him from the middle of the bush, "Moses, Moses." "Here I am," Moses replied. "Do not come any closer," the Lord warned. "Take off your sandals, for you are standing on holy ground." Then the Lord told him, "I have certainly seen the oppression of my people in Egypt. I have heard their cries of distress because of their harsh slave drivers. Yes, I am aware of their suffering."
For 80 years, Moses' life has been slowly changing altitudes. Moses' attitude changed with God's altitude. Moses went from grand to humble, self-reliance to God-reliance, taking the law into his hands to following God's 10 Commandments, inadequate to capable, and cowardly to courageous. What about you? Are you like Moses, making the transition to God's altitude?
Exodus 33, verses 12 to 14 and 18 NLT. One day Moses said to the Lord, "You have been telling me, take these people up to the promised land, but you haven't told me whom you will send with me. You have told me, I know you by name, and I look favorably on you. If it is true that you look favorably on me, let me know your ways so I may understand you more fully and continue to enjoy your favor. And remember that this nation is your very own people." The Lord replied, "I will personally go with you, Moses, and I will give you rest. Everything will be fine for you." Moses responded, "Then show me your glorious presence." Exodus 34, verse 29 NLT. When Moses came down Mount Sinai carrying the 2 stone tablets inscribed with the terms of the covenant, he wasn't aware that his face had become radiant because he had spoken to the Lord.
When Bobby and I made the transition from walking to hiking, we knew that each mountain we climbed was not only increasing our altitude, but our desire to seek out more of God's beautiful attitude. We, like Moses, hunger for our attitudes to reflect God's altitude to continually shine in and through us. This concludes our devotional video of Lighthouse KinShip, Different Altitude, Different Attitude. Psalms chapter 121, verses 1 and 2, NLT. I look up to the mountains. Does my help come from there? My help comes from the Lord, who made heaven and earth. Psalms 119, verse 105, the Message. By your words I can see where I'm going. They throw a beam of light on my dark path.
Monica and I thank you for traveling on with us here at Wilson Creek, Grayson Highlands State Park, mouth of Wilson, Virginia. Come along and journey with us by subscribing to our channel. Hit that little notification bell so that you won't miss our next stop. Please give us a thumbs up, liking our videos, and help us to spread the gospel by sharing these videos on your social media platforms. Thank you for leaving your comments below on how these devotions are helping you, and also your prayer requests so that we know how to pray for you.